We discuss the most useless ships present at the Battle of Exegol on today's Star Wars video. Today's video is brought to you by HelloFresh, and I'm a big meal kits guy. I'm not good at grocery shopping in advance. My wife and I are super busy, and meal kits are easy, they're very convenient, and they're healthier and cheaper than fast food. Most importantly, for me at least, HelloFresh is easily the most delicious meal kit that I've ever tried. In the most recent box I got, I tried the saucy beef tacos, which were just amazing, and they actually gave us so much that there was even more left over for the next day. One other thing I like about HelloFresh, and this may be small to some people, but it's big to me, is that the packages are much smaller, they're much neater, and they're just more environmentally friendly and easy to dispose of than other meal kits. If you want to try HelloFresh and get some delicious meals like I did, you can go to HelloFresh.com and use the code EckhartsLadder for up to 16 free meals and 3 surprise gifts. Again, that's EckhartsLadder for 16 meals and 3 surprise gifts. Thanks so much to HelloFresh for sponsoring this video. Please send me more food. On with the content. I've spent, well, let's just say my fair share of time making fun or teasing the Battle of Exegol on this channel. The battle does have some, well, logical inconsistencies. There are some issues with tactics. I think that it was largely a lazy battle, but today we'll actually be doing something different and examining the good guy fleet, often called the Galaxy Fleet. Specifically, we'll be looking at the 5 least useful ship types which actually appeared at the battle. Now, this isn't actually a criticism of the battle whatsoever. I actually really like the fact that ships from all walks of life came from across the galaxy to fight against this final Imperial threat. My friend Spaceshipper on Twitter, who I think is worth a follow, said it well. I mean, no ship is out of place in the last battle for democracy, even ships without weapons. Definitely true. That being said, there were definitely some ships which weren't quite carrying their weight as the larger Mon Calamari cruisers were. Here are 5 that I think were particularly, well, not super useful, and this isn't in any order. First off, we have Han's freighter, and I'm using that term because that's probably what most of you know this ship from. When Han lost the Millennium Falcon, he presumably went through a variety of ships, including, finally, by The Force Awakens, the Eravana, which was a Baleen-class heavy freighter. The reason why this ship, I think, deserves a really early mention on this list is because Baleen-class heavy freighters make up a ton of the bulk of the Resistance/Galaxy fleet. According to Star Wars Wiki, and I have no reason to doubt this, at least 25 Baleen-class heavy freighters identical to the Eravana can be found in the Galaxy fleet, despite the fact that these ships possess no armaments whatsoever, and even if they did, unlike other freighters, you wouldn't think that they would be easily fitted for combat. They are very, very bulky. There's no way these things are moving with any speed whatsoever, and it just seems like there's not a lot of damage that they can do on their own. That being said, I can't imagine one kind of unique use for these ships, and that is as a carrier. Many of the fighters in this battle wouldn't have had hyperdrives, so maybe these freighters were loaded up with smaller ships at the rendezvous point, then at the battle they open that giant door and let them out. I guess that's perhaps an option. They probably have at least a decently thick hull as well. Still, a lot of these ships, not necessarily sure of their purpose. Next up, we have another ship from The Force Awakens, and if you're wondering whether that's strange, it's really not. The reason why we're seeing ships which have appeared in other sources is because the Galaxy fleet was made up largely of existing art assets that ILM had access to. So it makes sense that the ships which were really highly detailed, like say Han's freighter, are featured pretty prominently because they hold up the best. Another ship, the next one we're talking about, is the Quad Jumper. This appears in The Force Awakens as the ship that Finn and Rey are running to before they go towards the Millennium Falcon. Quad Jumpers are basically cargo tugs. They would attach to larger vessels and help them move either through atmosphere or through space. That's why they've got these big turbine engines on the front, and I guess that would maybe help at the Battle of Exegol somewhat, but either way, these things are meant purely for basic thrust, for moving large objects, and I guess they probably have some speed of their own, but they would not handle in any sort of graceful way, and of course these ships would not have any sort of weapons whatsoever. Theoretically, I mean, given the fact that it is a Star Wars ship, you could modify some weapons to a cargo tug, but I think they'd be better fitted on pretty much any other fighter or craft. I also don't really see where there'd be room for them. I mean, take a look at this cutaway. The thing is all engines with a little bit of living quarters. Also, one hit to any of this ship's body and it's completely gone. Still, I actually do kind of like the design. It fits perfectly for Jakku, a planet which was a large scrapyard, but I would not want to be flying it during the Battle of Exegol. Alright, next up, we're returning to our old friend, the GR-75. Of course, there were GR-75s in this fleet. In fact, it's a bit of a shame there weren't any during Episode 8. It would have been nice to see a couple just eviscerated by the Mega Star Destroyer's giant lasers, but it's fitting that these are here because they were present for many of the most important battles against the Empire. The role of the GR-75 has been hotly debated. Sometimes they're listed as communication ships, other times as fire ships, i.e. a vessel filled with explosives meant to ram against an enemy vessel. My feeling is that mostly the Alliance probably just strapped a few laser cannons on these things because they had them available in numbers and hoped for the best. Sometimes too, the GR-75 probably went to battle because they carried Alliance supplies and they needed to stay with the fleet even if that meant going into danger. Either way, there were GR-75s at this battle too. I think they would have been even more vulnerable at the Battle of Exegol because it was just such a giant melee, but the fireship versions could have been very effective against the Xystons, which were somewhat defenseless and did have that vulnerable spot, so could have fallen to a well-timed ram. One thing you guys might be noticing is that although a lot of these ships come in on the lower end when talking about utility, they do have some usefulness. You can strap guns on pretty much everything in Star Wars. Just think, do you want to be the one piloting it? Do you want to be the one trying to take down a Star Destroyer? Alright, this next one probably falls even further into that category, and I actually debated not including it, but the Rise of Skywalker novelization, both the normal one and the junior novel, list off a lot of the ships explicitly. There are some fun mentions like the Z-95, but one that I really liked, and that was probably not the most useful ship, at least not the one I would want to be flying, was the Cronian Battlebird. These ships come from Star Wars Legends, and if they have the same lore, they are old. I'm not talking Old Republic old, they were much older. I'm talking 25,000 years. These ships were used in the Zim the Despot era. Now the Cronian Warbird mentioned is said to have been restored, but still, that is a very old piece of hardware that somebody must have had lying around on their backyard or in a museum or something. One thing I do want to note as well is that although Star Wars is seen largely as not having technological progression, when you go back that far, starship technology is actually very different. Lasers, for example, were significantly less powerful, so ships had not shields but typically mirrors or mirrored armor, and pretty much everything was just a downgrade. That being said, Star Wars canon does actually talk about Zim the Despot having a massive flagship, perhaps even approximate in size to the Supremacy, so I guess it's possible that the Cronian Battlebird could still come from that era but be significantly more powerful. Alright, finally we have another fun one, the Star Speeder 1000, and a lot of you will probably recognize this as the Star Tours vehicle. These are basically buses, and of course in Star Tours you can visit the Battle of Exegol, and the Star Speeder is actually anything but useless. It takes out TIE fighters, attacks a Star Destroyer, and whatever else. That clearly is non-canon. However, the Star Speeder itself can be briefly seen during the film, and presumably the vessel did not come stock with laser cannons and whatever else. It was also probably not very fast. It would have basically slowly worked its way into orbit and then taken a hyperspace jump. Anyway guys, that's my look at the most useless ships of the Battle of Exegol. I hope this video was fun. I didn't mean for it to be negative, and I don't think it was. Just looking at some of the ships that would have made up the Galaxy or the Citizens fleet. But guys, until next time, thanks for watching this video. Thanks again for sponsoring this video, HelloFresh. Until next time, be safe, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.